granted a complete forgiveness, that he is numbers amongst those that he is granted ma'arifah, a knowledge, a nearness to him. We're also here by the intention that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would make us amongst those that are beloved to him. We're here by the intention that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would allow us to follow the sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, whose name is also Taha and Yasin and Mustafa. We're here by the intention that we would be safe, that Allah would grant us safety and security and our protection. We're here by the intention that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would allow us to enter into Jannatul Firdaus al-A'la by his mercy, by his mercy, by his mercy. Ameen. So I want to, inshallah, I'm going to take it off. Can you guys see me? Let me know if you can see me, inshallah. Yay? Yes? Okay, alhamdulillah. So I want to, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, we're going to, inshallah, go over. Can you see this particular surah? Can you see that? Yes? Alhamdulillah. Okay. So I wanted to, in Surah Al-Taha, which is Surah 20 in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the ayat 80, we're going over the ayat 80 all the way to ayat 86, right? All the way, actually, we're going to go up to 87. We're going to go from ayat 80 to 87. And for those of you, inshallah, who can see it on my screen, I want to just take a minute and go over a couple of things. I just want to tell the story to kind of give the backdrop of what's happened. And so at this particular time, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given Prophet Musa, he's given him prophecy, he's given revelation, and he's also giving him risala, right? And risala means that he's given him a mission. And so in giving him this mission, part of what's happening is that he has the responsibility to make sure that his people are safe, right? He has the responsibility to deliver his people out of the land of Pharaoh into safety and security, that they are being oppressed in the land for a number of reasons. Particularly, mostly what happens is one of the worst things that Pharaoh did, that he was God and that people should worship, enslaving people. And there was a system of hierarchy. And so in this enslavement of people, he would also, of course, again, force into worship. Then he had a dream that basically someone was going to replace him, right? That someone was going to replace him in the land. And as a result of this dream that someone was going to replace him, he began to kill all of the firstborn, right? The firstborn boys. And so he would let the firstborn one generation, and then the next one he would let go, and then he would, in order to keep the population of slaves going. But in addition to, he was forcing the midwives in order to kill these babies. So there's in addition to the physical oppression, there's also a level of spiritual oppression, and there's a mental oppression that's happening. And so Musa, when he comes, that part of his revelation, part of his responsibility is to get his people to migrate from one state to another state, right? To get out of the state of oppression into the land of safety. So this, and again, to go back, is that Musa is in his responsibility to migrate these people, to bring them, right, from one state to another state, to get them to make hijrah. There are 3 levels of hijrah that have to happen for his people in order to be successful. The first thing is that what we begin to look at is that, subhanAllah, just as Pharaoh was mentally oppressing them, he was physically oppressing them, and he was spiritually oppressing them. Because what he was saying is, I am your Lord, worship me. You shall have no other God except for me. That your religion basically is the religion of whatever I tell you. And so when Musa comes, he has to actually liberate his people from these 3 levels of oppression. He has to liberate them physically, which means first, before he can liberate them physically, he's got to liberate them mentally. He has to let them know that you are worth more than this. He has to let them know that you have been created for a higher purpose. He has to let them know that you have a Lord and it's not a human being. He has to let them know how to connect to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala so that they have a level of liberation that is spiritual, mental, and then as a result, when you can remove the shackles off your spiritual self and you can remove the shackles off your mental self, then removing the shackles from your physical self becomes easy, right? Then you begin to rise up as a people. So I want to talk a little bit. So after, I'm going to talk a little bit about what happens next. See, after they have been praying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for a number of years, right? They've been praying, asking for Allah for help, praying and asking Allah to grant them relief. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala finally sends them someone who grants them relief. And so literally when we catch this particular ayah in Surah when we catch this particular ayah, basically it's like they have, they are at the realm of escape. We're going to listen to that. Can you guys hear that? Were you able to hear that? Tell me yes if you were. And so then it goes on. Allahumma salli wa sallim wa barik sayyidina Muhammad. So then it goes on into 2085, where then it basically talks about where basically Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if we go down all of the verses here, right? They're close upon my tracks, and I hasten to you, my Lord, that you be pleased. قَالَ إِنَّ قَدْ فَتَنَّا قَوْمَكَ مِنْ بَعْدِكَ وَأَضَلَّهُمُ السَّامِرِيُّونَ. That Allah said, but indeed we have tried your people after you departed, and the Samiri has led them astray. So Musa returned to his people. This is what we're going to talk about. What happens after they've been rescued, after Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grants them a liberation? They're there for a period of time. Then Prophet Musa has to basically go away for a period of time. Prophet Musa basically needs to go communicate with his Lord. And as he's going to communicate with his Lord, he basically has a moment where he needs to receive revelation. He needs to go talk to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala about what's next. And as he's talking to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala about what's next, his people are in a state of isolation. They're in a state of separation, right? And so when they're in this moment of separation, they're separated from what? They're separated from their normal life. They're separated from their normal routine. They're separated from their cultural norms, from their social norms, from the things that they used to do, from the things that they used to get excited about, for how they used to base their life around, right? And so even though those things that they had built their customs around, even though their life was kind of navigating in and out and around this oppression, they still, in this moment, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had liberated them from that, when they were in moments of isolation, they forgot that. They forgot that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had liberated them from something. And so then they began to miss, right, their social norms. They begin to miss their, the isolation caused them to forget that Allah had liberated them from oppression, had saved them from Pharaoh, and they became too consumed with, I miss my old food. I miss my old drink. I miss my old, my old stomping ground. I miss my old coffee shop. I miss my, my old routine. And they literally begin to complain, right? Like, I want to go back, because I want some of that I want some of that food. I want some of that social norm, the things that we used to do, the normal habit. I want to go back, right? And so in this moment, and it becomes even more so when they have a moment when they're absent from their spiritual leader. So when they're absent from their spiritual leader, they literally, their hearts begin to start to crave, believe it or not, some of the same things that they were experiencing before their liberation. Some of the same things that they, have been praying to Allah to deliver them from, they were now asking for it back. And I want us to just take a minute and to think about, what is our behavior like, right? If we were to ask ourselves, what kind of liberation have we been asking Allah for? For example, if we've been asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Ya Rabbi, I need more time in my life. Ya Allah, I wish I had more time with my family. Ya Allah, I wish I had more time to study. I wish I had more time to focus. I wish I had more time to meditate. I wish I had moments to myself. Now, when we're in this moment of separation, are we asking, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in this case, believe it or not, at this very moment, He is actually answering some of the prayers that we were making from before. Some that we literally said, raised our hands and asked for, and some prayers that we asked from our hearts, some things that we were claiming that we were desiring for. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this moment is granting that to us through this particular, what we consider a trial, in many cases is the answer to our prayers. But what are we like? Are we similar to the people of Musa? That in now this moment of separation, in this moment of isolation, are we saying, wow, I wish I could get busy again with all the distractions. I wish I could just go back to the customary norms and the routine that kept me away from my Lord, that kept me away from myself, that kept me away from my family, that kept me away from the book of Allah. Right? Are we like these people? But there's some other aspects that I want to cover in this particular thing as well. That in the absence of a spiritual teacher, that when we are in the absence of what we consider a physical thing by which draws us, like basically whether it's a charismatic leader or whether it's a masjid, because in this moment where Musa has to have time with his Lord in order to receive revelation. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is calling Musa to a khalwa with him. It's calling Musa to a separation so that he can have time with his Lord, right? And in this moment, the people are starting to fall apart, right? It's starting to lose it. It's very similar to the moment when the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he passes away, and the people are in the masjid, they start to lose it. They start to ask themselves, should we pray or we shouldn't pray? Do we pray at Jama'ah? Should we pray in our homes? What should we do? Even one of our strongest leaders, Umar ibn Khattab, radiallahu ta'ala anhu, may Allah be pleased with him, Umar pulls out his sword and he begins to wave it and says, anyone who says that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is dead, I will strike him with the sharp edge of my sword, right? He's lost it with his grief, his sorrow, right? Even though Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had revealed that the messenger shall pass away as messengers before him, right? And it's not until Abu Bakr comes and grabs Omar by his beard. And what does he say to Omar? Something very similar that we have to say to ourselves today. He says to Omar, he looks at him as he grabs his beard, trying to shake him back into his sanity, and he addresses the people. And he said, you who worship Muhammad, know that Muhammad is dead. And those are the hardest words to say, subhanAllah. Said, but you who worship Allah, know that Allah is alive. Right? So I ask us, in the absence of our spiritual teachers, our spiritual places that we go, when we go to the masjid, we like to go to our groups, our people that we hang out with. Where are we? Are we losing it? Are we wondering, should I pray? Should I not pray? Am I just, indulging? Am I just like binging Netflix? Am I binging Hulu? Am I like, what am I going to do with my life? Oh my goodness, I wish I could just go back to my same rat race routine. In the absence of the spiritual axis, remember this: Allah is present. Allah is present and accounted for. And He, in this moment, in this very exact moment, is saying, I'm giving you what you asked me for. Right? You've been praying. You've been saying, I wish I could get closer to Allah. I wish I could, focus more on my prayers. I wish I had more time to study. Allah saying, I'm giving you exactly what you asked for. Right? And so we must be careful not to have a moment of complaint, not to have a moment of, brat out, not to have a moment of, I just, want it to go back because it's familiar. Because there's something very challenging about that. When we are so busy that we're too busy for Allah, then with whom are we busy with? The world? Ourselves? Our nafs? How about, what if we were to actually talk about what portion of our world is very, not just nafsani based, is shaitani based? What portion of our world is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying, I'm going to remove that for now. I'm going to wash that away for now. Think about the places that are closed, that people can no longer gather. Think about the places where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not pleased with those places. Think about how Allah is saying, I'm just going to put this on pause for now. This is just going to stop for now. Right? But we're saying, wait a minute, I missed the sound. I missed the smell. I missed the noise. May Allah help us. I want to, inshallah, go to what are we in the absence of spiritual axis? How do we develop a kind of the behavior like the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Because this is, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لَقَدْ جَاءَكُمْ رَسُولٌ مِنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ, أنفسكم, that there has brought from a prophet from amongst you. What does it mean that I have sent you a prophet from amongst you? Yes, there is one level that He sent a prophet from amongst the people. That He sent a prophet. There's one narration or one tafsir or exegesis of the Quran that says that He sent a prophet from amongst the people, not from the jinn or the angels, that He sent a prophet from the people. But there's a deeper meaning here. When it says, لَقَدْ جَاءَكُمْ رَسُولٌ مِنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ, meaning from within you, right? From within you, that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam should be shining through us. That the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we should be embodying him so much that we find him present. Now this is a high task. This is a big task for the believer. But when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said the believer is a mirror to the believer, there are multiple meanings and explanations for this one. But one of the biggest aspects, the one I want to focus on tonight, is that in order for us to be, who is the best and the highest of believers? The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He is the best of believers. So we want to do our best to be a mirror and a reflection of the greatest of believers. Why? Because that's what's going to help us maintain our spiritual uprightness. That's what's going to cause us that in the absence of physical thing, the absence of a charismatic leader to be in their physical presence, right? Or the absence of a charismatic, exciting space, the masjid, to be in, where people are talking and socializing and all of that, how am I going to be? How am I going to be if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts me in a state of separation or isolation? So these are the things we're going to go over tonight, inshallah. What is our behavior like in the absence of the Messenger? Number one, we never back down from our state. What do we mean we never back down from our state? Whatever level of worship we had before, we keep that. But in order to be constant and consistent, right, we keep it moving. We've got to be in a state of progression. We cannot be so concerned with the coronavirus that we forget, I've got to prepare for Ramadan, Sha'aban, time to send salawat to the Prophet, alayhi salatu wasalam. I've got to begin to organize my schedule, right? If you haven't been in the habit of reading a juz a day, alhamdulillah, we're about to build some of those habits, inshallah, right? This is also time, we've got a little bit more time, inshallah, to even fast. If you've got makeup fast that you need to do, this is the time to get those done. If you've got sunnah, this is the time to start practicing. That what is ahead of us, bi'idhnillah, is the same, right? What is ahead of us is the same. So we have, remember we talked about before, other classes, we have istiqamah. Istiqamah is not that I'm just consistent, but I must be consistently and constantly progressing, moving forward. Because if I'm doing the same, then that's stagnation, okay? The next aspect, right, of course, have istiqamah, is that these are some physical things I want us to think about. We have to stand firm inside ourselves, right? We have to stand firm inside ourselves against disbelief, against that which is incorrect, that which is unsound. We have to be able to say, what is it that my heart longs for? Do I long? Ask yourself, what I miss about my world, do we yearn more for the light? Or do we yearn more, or is my yearning have a mixture of good and bad, of some light and darkness in my yearning, right? Because there's some aspects of our world, some dunya aspects that are not healthy for the human being, that are not healthy for the human heart, that aren't healthy for the soul. And these are the things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is putting on pause. So we have to increase our yearning for light, increase our yearning for light and for goodness. The other thing is that use this time to develop, right? To develop a contentment with a little. Develop a contentment with a little. Because these are things that the Prophet ﷺ, he constantly was training our hearts about. Be content with a little. So this is why he would tell us, he never ate his fill. From the moment he received revelation, he never ate until his stomach was full. He said he would eat 1/3 food, 1/3 water, and leave 1/3 for air, 1/3 for room to breathe. Why? Why would he do this? Because for times, right, when there might be scarcity, as there were times when he's making this migration, right, that there might be times of scarcity. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is changing things, when he's changing the direction of our life, he's going to cause us to have to practice a little self-restraint. We're going to have to learn to tighten our belts. So we're going to have to learn to eat less, sleep less, socialize less. These are 3 things the Prophet ﷺ constantly reminded us: eat less, sleep less, socialize less. Now most of us are like, whoa, sleep less? I've got so much time to sleep now. I can catch up on my sleep. No, this is not the time to catch up on your sleep. This is the time to catch up on learning. This is the time to catch up on knowledge. This is the time to catch up, on all the things that you've been wanting to learn. But in order to do that, it's going to cause you to hold back, right? To tighten the reins on yourself, on your nafs. Your nafs at this time are going to want to just go like, whoa, that's it. We're done. I can just relax. But nope, you've got to actually tighten them up. And so eat less, sleep less, socialize less. The next thing is that the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, this is something he did, right? It's a bit challenging for us, is that he would give sadaqah. Even in times of scarcity, he would give in sadaqah. Why? Why would he give in sadaqah even more? Because he knows that when you give in sadaqah, to give in charity, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says it's a protection from tribulation. To give in charity is a protection from calamity. It's even a protection for you and your family from sickness. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam would encourage us to actually give in charity. Right? To give in charity, to give in sadaqah, especially in moments of fear. In moments where we feel like, no, maybe I should hoard now. I should save every dime because I don't know what's going to happen. I should save, 1,000 pieces of toilet paper. I should save, every grain of rice. But in reality, this is a time to give in sadaqah. Why? Because it also increases you in a high level of tawakkul, a high level of reliance on Allah. Now, you trust in Allah and tie your camel. Don't extend your hand too far, but at the same time, be very, very careful, right? That you don't become one who hoards, because that is the opposite of tawakkul, right? That is the opposite. That's going to create the opposite of spiritual growth. So you want to then give in charity. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he didn't even save one dirham for the next day. Can you imagine? He didn't save one dirham for the next day. Even when he was passing away, the beloved Messenger of Allah, alayhi salatu wasalam, he put his head in the lap of our mother Aisha. And as he put his head in the lap of Aisha, he would be in and out of consciousness. And when he would wake up one particular time, he said there are 3 dirhams under the pillow. 3 dirhams. It's like 3 quarters. Right? He said there are 3 dirhams under the pillow. He said, go give it in sadaqah. And so she didn't want to leave him because she knows he's in Sakharat al-Maut. He's in the, he's on the pathway to death. So she's like, Ya Rasulullah, tell somebody else to go give it. Like, I don't want to give it. I don't want to leave you, Ya Rasulullah. And he told her, go give it. Go give it in sadaqah. Right? That he was forcing her. Like even in this moment, as he's in this moment of death, he's dying. He's thinking about giving away charity. So we have to be like this. The other thing is that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam at this time, he was never angry for his own sake. Never angry for his own sake. There's, once he, Anas bin Malik, radiallahu ta'ala anhu, Allah be pleased with him, his mother used to bring him to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam from the time that he was 10. And when he was 10, he would, bring him to the Prophet and say, like, use him as your servant. Basically, like, train him up, teach him as you wish. And so Anas bin Malik being 10, he wasn't the greatest of workers. He wouldn't, but the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he would never fuss at him. He would never ask him, never say, Anas said, I would serve the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam for 10 years. And he never said to me, why did you do this? Or why didn't you do this? Never. Now, for me, I'm in big trouble. When I think about my children, I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm in big trouble. Right? And alhamdulillah, I have some hope, because Aisha radiallahu ta'ala an, she said that when she would say something to Anas bin Malik, like he would get in trouble, and she would say, and the Prophet ﷺ would say, leave him. One particular time, the Prophet ﷺ told Anas bin Malik, go out and do an errand for him. So he went out to do the errand, but then he saw some of his friends playing in the courtyard. So he went and he started playing with them, and he forgot what the Prophet ﷺ told him to do. So later the Prophet ﷺ came and he put his hands in front of his eyes. He came from behind him and he put his hand in front of his eyes like this. Right? And then Anas bin Malik, he realized, this is the Prophet ﷺ. And then he ran off, right, to go do what it was that then he remembered. Right? So at this time, when we're with our families, it's very difficult, right? It's very challenging to not rub each other the wrong way. It's very challenging to not get on each other's nerves. I wake up and you're here. right? I want to eat breakfast and you're here. I turn around and eat lunch and you're here. I want to go for dinner and you're still here. I go to bed and you're still here, right? We're even used to having moments to let our nafs breathe. Like I want to find somewhere to myself. This morning I found myself standing in my closet, right? My son said, "Mom, what are you doing?" Like, I'm in my closet. What are you doing in the closet? I'm trying to steal a moment to myself. SubhanAllah. Allah make it easy. Allah make it easy for us all. That we have moments like this, right? Where we're even our privacy sometimes, even those moments to be by ourselves, we cherish, right? We cherish. And so sometimes being with people, of course, we're learning each other's habits. We think we're great people until we're until we're in isolation with a group of other people. Very similar to the people of Musa, right? They're in isolation, but they're in isolation with a whole bunch of other people. SubhanAllah. And it's not easy. It's not easy, especially when it's a stressful situation, especially when you're worried. Then you find out who you really are. Then you discover your true character. Then you're about to find out who are you really. You think you're patient until you're locked for 2 weeks, 3 weeks in the same house with your whole family, right? Then you're like, I'm not so patient. You think you're kind, and then, your kindness wears out like day 5. Day 5, you're like, fix your own breakfast. Day 5, you're like, you figure it out. You make, arguments start to happen. What we have to remember is, what's our character like in the absence of our spiritual access? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is still present. How do we say, Ya Rasulullah, I'm going to be like you, I'm going to mirror your character, I'm going to bring you out in me, right? He was never angry for his own sake. So the next thing is, develop our love and our action for Habibullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. How do we develop a love for the action of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam? Know his seerah. Read the seerah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Use this time to update yourself, especially as we enter into the month of Sha'ban. Use this time to just increase your knowledge about the life of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and his actions and what he loved and what he did, especially Isra and Mi'raj, right? As we just came off of Isra and Mi'raj, like these moments where the Prophet alayhi salatu wasallam had to ascend. A couple of nights ago, I was on a webinar with Celebrate Mercy talking about the Isra and Mi'raj. And as we're on we're talking about it, we actually start to review that as the Prophet ﷺ is going through the 7 heavens, he passes by Adam, he passes by John the Baptist, he passes by Moses and Harun, he passes by Yusuf, he passes by Idris in the 4th, and then he gets to Ibrahim. And as he does that, it's teaching us about ascension, right? Adam has the biggest trial with his sons, with his children. But he has have a big struggle with their people. And so the Prophet ﷺ also had to ascend this kind of adversity. And then they came to Yusuf is the seduction of the dunya. He is a means of trial for him. So I say to people, be careful, because at this time, right, when we're sitting at home, we're in front of our computers, sometimes you feel like I need some outside attention. This is a perfect moment for shaitan to try to come in and seduce you. Let me take a few pictures. Let me try to have some attention-seeking behavior. Let me get online and post. Maybe someone will like me, give me some likes, give me some attention, give me some whatever. We have to be very careful about this. That part of the ascension over his adversity, right, is how the seduction of the dunya. And then, of course, Musa, this migration. And Ibrahim. Ibrahim is such a test in terms of a testimony, for those who are converts, as it relates to him having his father, right, being not Muslim, and still having to keep a good relation, but at the same time, his people want to persecute him, put him in the fire. So for us, it's extremely important that we also have this kind of ascension. He's teaching us, for all the prophets that there were, why did he meet these 7, right? Sometimes it's family we have to learn to deal with. Yusuf also has brothers. He has siblings who are just like contentious and want to kill him. There's serious sibling rivalry there, but he still has to remain patient and kind and consistent and good character in order for his spiritual ascension. So each one of these things, there's something for us to learn. Know the love of the Prophet ﷺ. He loved poor people. He loved poor people. Right? He used to love them so much that we know that Ahl al-Sifa, the poor people, like the homeless people, they would be like on the Prophet's porch. So when he came, he would see them. When he would leave, he would see them. And if he had something, he would share with them. So during this time, let us not forget those who are less fortunate, right? And love them, love them, love them, love them. SubhanAllah. Somebody said to me, the ones who are suffering, their condition hasn't changed. That they were always suffering and now they're suffering. So now that we're suffering with them, let us not forget them. Let's not put ourselves still in front of them. Use these days to fast Mondays and Thursdays, right? Train our hearts to miss the Prophet, miss him, read his seerah, learn about him, learn his loves, and miss him. I want to close with this. As we reflect on these 7 ayats, and I encourage you to go back and look at these 7 ayats, it's very important that as we're looking at these ayats, that we make sure we reflect on 2 aspects. The hijrah that was asked for the people of Musa was a mental migration from being attached to their worldly things, being attached to dunya things. So there needed to be a liberation from that, which means that there was a level of attachment, believe it or not, to their oppression. There's a comfort. Sometimes we are comfortable inside of things that are oppressive, and which just becomes our norm. So how do we mentally become liberated from that? How do we physically, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has physically liberated us, right? How do we enjoy it? And how do we let it become a spiritual liberation? So that when you are liberated, you can be free and stay in the same place. So what happens in the people of Musa is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala removed them, right? He removed them he put them in a certain isolation and separation, also in order to empty out their hearts. So to close out the story, when Musa returns from his moment with Allah to receive the signs, he comes back to his people, and what have they done? They have emptied out all of their gold, and they have built a golden calf, right? They've emptied out all their gold, and they've built a golden calf. And they begin to worship it. They begin to worship this golden calf. Why would they do such a thing? After they have a prophet who's taught them Tawheed, who's taught them the oneness of God, who's taught them the greatness of Allah, about Allah al-Azim, Allahu Akbar. Why would you then empty your own gold after you've been spiritually liberated from worshiping a man? Why would you then go create an idol for yourself? Why would you do that? Because you were not truly spiritually liberated. We were still attached to, I want something physical in front of me as a spiritual axis. As opposed to, it's much harder to worship Allah whom you do not see, but to see Allah perfectly through his signs, and to see Allah perfectly through your heart. Many people become attached to physical things, whether it's the Prophet, the Imam, the Sheikh, the Masjid. Physical things become their spirituality. And when those physical things are removed and they're left truly with their souls and Allah, both which are unseen, they start to lose it. So we have to say, Allah is my spiritual access, and I cannot become someone so attached to physical things that I then begin to throw all of the dunya I have, whatever money I have, I'll throw it into Netflix, Hulu, online shopping, whatever it is, in order to direct my attention towards something else, as opposed to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is calling us to look within in order to grant us a true liberation mentally, physically, and spiritually. So we have to be the people who are saying, I embrace that, Ya Allah, and I remain steadfast, and it is you that I worship. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. Raise your hand if there are any questions.